We have a great group of women. Some I've known for a few years, some I've just recently met. So I'm going to introduce our first panelist, who is Pam Susi. And Pam has 29 years of experience as an industrial hygienist, and she currently works for the PA OSHA Consultation Program. So Pam, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, thanks for inviting me, and thanks for the folks who are stuck around this late in the day to watch our presentations here. Just a little bit about where I work, Pennsylvania OSHA Consultation. We're one of 50 OSHA consultation programs. There's one in every state. They were established about a few years after the OSHA Act was put into place, and the idea was to help small to medium employers, establish the tools they needed to better comply with the OSHA standards. I come out of the trades as a carpenter, and but it was a long, long time ago. So that little girl has a hard hat on and the carpenter pouch and the work boots on, dressing up with my stuff there when I was sleeping from working the night shift at a smelter. She's now that young woman, not even that young herself anymore, over to the left with the babies of her own. And then top left there, that's a job I was on in Miami, which is where I worked, most of the time as a juryman. That's my hometown. That was probably the best job I worked on, where we were renovating a historic mansion. And the sister who was working as a plumber on Comcast, she kind of reminded me, because we used to take the ferry over there. So we'd see sunrise on Biscayne Bay every morning when we went over there. It's kind of cool. So these are just some statistics about women in the trades, and the top 3 bars there you see, I think, represent probably most of who's at this meeting, or we've been talking about at this meeting. And it goes from 1964 on up to the present. And the orange bar there near the top, that would be transportation. And I kind of can't see because let me see if I can shrink this down a little bit. Okay, so that orange bar, it kind of starts small, and over time, it actually does increase pretty well. The green, which is manufacturing, it kind of stays steady and actually seems to kind of diminish a little bit. And then construction, the black line, you can hardly see it there back in the 60s. And then over time, it gets a little thicker, but it's still pretty thin. And then if you look at actual percentage of women employed overall in these industries, and that would include administrative staff. In transportation, it's like 23%, manufacturing 29%, and construction 9%. But then if we look at production, which would be tradespeople, 1990 it was only 2%, and then 18 years later, it had only inched up to 2.4. So it's really been slow to increase. The key issues that seem to keep coming up, this was a thing when I was, these are issues that were big when I was in there, and, it's many, many years later, it still seems to keep coming up when they do research on what the big problems are. Sanitation, bad fitting personal protective equipment, occupational stress, and ergonomic issues. And what we have to address those problems is fairly limited. We have OSHA standards, some OSHA standards, but that really varies by whether you're in private, if you're in manufacturing or construction, if you're in public or private sector. In Pennsylvania, there's no public sector OSHA. You guys in SEPTA, you got coverage under Federal Railway Safety Act. Consensus standards sometimes are better than the actual enforceable standards. There are some ANSI standards we'll talk about that can be used for best practice, but unfortunately, the enforceable standards are sometimes kind of weak. Sanitation is actually a health issue because the lack of clean, accessible toilets results in decreased use of the toilets themselves, and that can cause increased risk of urinary tract infections, bladder and bowel disorders, and that's how OSHA sees it. So that's why they require that employers provide them. And lack of hand washing increases exposure to bacteria and viral agents and toxic agents. People smoke, they get the toxics on their hand, and then it goes in their mouth. And this is particularly an issue now, of course, with COVID. And in construction, we'll see how they're weaker than they are in general industry. There are some ANSI standards we'll talk about a little bit. Sometimes municipalities have stronger laws. Job specifications can be something that can be used. Owners like SEPTA or PennDOT, they could specify things. They have done that in areas like lead. Collective bargaining can help. I was just talking to a guy who's a safety director in New York City, and he was saying how, they've got things up there where the trades have bargained to get men's and women's bathrooms where, it's not really required by OSHA. So toilet requirements in construction, it's only required you have one porta-john for 20 or less workers. And you could, when you get to a job, it's like 200 workers, you will only have to have one per 50. So you could be on a big project with 200 workers and only have like 4 toilets. So probably my worst memory was when I was working on the Dolphin Stadium job and, going into the porta-john, that was not a pleasant sight. General industry, you could go on to a job like that and you're going to probably have like at least 7, maybe 8 toilets. So there's a big difference between general industry and construction when it comes to sanitation. And this is a letter that went out to the regional administrators and state designees at OSHA. So giving some guidance to enforcement. And what they're saying here is that, not only do you have to provide toilets and so on, but they also have to be readily available. You can't make workers walk a mile to get to them, and they have to be clean. They have to be in such a condition that people will actually use them. I know when I was a carpenter, I would actually go 8 hours and not use them because they were so dirty, but at least in Miami, you could sweat it out, but that's not healthy to do that. And there is an ANSI standard that they reference in this guidance that gives you some sense of what clean would be. And ANSI standard calls for a toilet that you use for up to 10 people be serviced a minimum of once per week. In general industry, they are required to provide toilets for each sex. And in construction, like I said, they are not. So that would have to be collectively bargained, or the employer would have to provide that. And then just in OSHA, they do have this new publication on guides for restroom access for transgender workers, which is a nice publication if that's something people are interested in. You can go to OSHA.gov or just Google it. In general industry, there's real clear language. You have to have water, hot, cold, running water, and soap, towels. Not so in construction. In construction, you actually have to be working with paints, lead, toxic agents, lead, working with cement where there's hexavalent chromium. It's only when you're doing that that they require that you have to use water and soap. Job stress is a big issue. There's some studies out there that have looked at this. There's one in Washington State that where they interviewed, they surveyed 300 construction workers, about 2/3 were women, and they found that 31% of the women were more likely to report stress than men, 18% for the men. But what was particularly interesting is that they found a correlation between stress and injury. And they looked at all these different variables they call psychosocial exposures. And these 4 were correlated with injury: gender discrimination, bullying, overcompensation, and sexual harassment. So, you probably get it, but overcompensation would be where you feel like as a woman, you have to prove yourself that, you can do what a man could. So there's a tendency to kind of pick up the sledgehammer and pick it up and, like hold it like a man or whatever you might do that would put a strain on your body. So one thing that sort of always blew my mind is that, in construction, you see these incredible feats where, they could just move mountains. And anyone who lives in the Philadelphia area has seen the Comcast towers. And probably a lot of you heard about how they've got these water tanks at the top because the towers are so tall that if they didn't have those in there, if you were standing on the 60th floor, if a big wind came, the towers would actually sway. So to keep that from happening, they put these tanks in there, and it's kind of like a ballast that keeps it from swaying. And you know, that took a lot to get that up there, right? 300,000-gallon tanks, and that you had the cranes, and it was quite an effort to do that, but they were able to do that. But for some reason, getting, you know, a little portable hand washing thing in on a job is like, you know, a feat that can't happen. So this is something that was taken from a little publication out in Pacific Northwest. And Pacific Northwest is one of the best places in terms of construction, safety, and health. And you read the little caption there, it says strange new construction equipment, because construction sites typically lack running water for hand washing. So hand washing facilities really should be on construction sites with soap and water and in close proximity to toilet facilities, especially now. And I think we're seeing them now more because of the COVID. Clean, gender separate sanitary facilities should be also on construction sites with locks on them. In a nutshell, more women in the trades would be, you know, better in terms of less isolation. It was good to hear some of the ideas about recruitment going on. And then there's the issue of making it an environment that women want to stay in. And it's a dangerous industry for men and women. And the more emphasis we can put on improving safety and health conditions, I think the more likely people are going to want to stay there. And then, you know, I said less Tarzan, more Jane. You know, the more we can do to eliminate this culture where the guy who's the biggest, you know, thinks he's the best, you know, that make it more like the person who's the smartest should be the one who's valued. Because sometimes the guy who's the biggest creates the most problems in terms of back injuries and claims and costs for the employer, and not necessarily a good thing. Workplace culture training should include an emphasis on the injurious effects of bullying and harassment. That's at the employer level, the apprenticeship level, supervisor level. Employers should have policies in place that are aimed at promoting a respectful work climate. Supervisors should emphasize that safety takes priority over productivity. And just for those of you who may want to utilize our services, the phone numbers here, our website, if you would like to contact me directly, there is my number and contact information. Okay. All right, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Pam. We appreciate that. So move along to our next panelist, who is Michele Paxton. Michele is the safety director for Binksy Snyder, which is a contractor in the city. And she is going to talk to us about some of the work that they're doing and what's needed. Thanks, Pam. And thanks, Michele.
Okay, thank you. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so one of the things that Pam mentioned that I thought was interesting is that OSHA really is limited in what they can do. So my message here to you today is use your voice and utilize your safety people. I've been doing this for 18 years now. There's a lot of issues out there for women, and some of those issues are things that have to be addressed, and unfortunately they're not. So one of the first things, I put this up there for a reason. Normally I would ignore stuff like this, okay? But the more that I have started to work with the tradeswomen directly, the more that I find things like this on a Google search when I put in women in construction, and this first image is what pops up. What that tells me is that perception is someone's reality. And that to me it revolves around an entire culture change in the industry. I feel like this industry is 50 years behind schedule. And now that we have more women coming in, there are legitimate concerns that we have to address. So some of my presentation actually overlaps Pam's. Mine goes into things that I have done though over the years to try to solve these problems. Health and, Pam said it, that health and safety issues affect both men and women, but there are certain things that women really have to take into consideration that are greater health hazards and have greater impact on female construction workers. And I don't know, I'm doing a little actually quite a bit of research into reproductive issues right now. And there's, there's silica out there, there are chemicals, there are all kinds of things. And addressing that specifically for women, if we need to, is something that we don't, that we don't do that often. The possibility of a hostile work environment, that scares me. That scares me because that's based solely on being discriminated against because you're a female, because of your gender. I have seen legitimate resentment. I've dealt with it. Resentment, jealousy. I have heard you're taking a man's job, and this isn't a safety position. This is not, Michele being out in the trades. So if they're coming to me and saying that, I can imagine that there's other talk of that on the job site as well. Being the bigger person can be difficult, but so much of what I've learned over the last 18 years is that push is deliberate. And that push in the beginning of my career, and still sometimes today I experience it, is because they want to see if I will break. And it's a shame, but it's the truth. Being the bigger person has done well for me in my career. I can't freak out. I can't, lose my mind. I can't scream and yell because I've found that, unfortunately, that becomes detrimental to your career moving forward. So again, Pam, had mentioned the bathrooms, and she did go through the OSHA standard. The OSHA standard drives me crazy, and I apologize, Pam, but because when you tell me that 200 or more people on a job, that there is one toilet seat and one urinal per 50 workers, that's concerning to me, because we've all been on job sites. And it's great that there's an OSHA standard that says they have to be sanitary, they have to be clean. They're neither sanitary nor clean. And this is an issue, I mean, legitimately for men and women both, but for us especially, because we have other things, that we have to deal with that men don't deal with. I have solved this problem on a couple of job sites because I can tell you that a general contractor, for the most part, does not want to see pictures of the insides of the porta-johns. But when you go to them with picture evidence of what's going out on the job site, they tend to take it a little bit more seriously and understand that the OSHA standards, they're minimum. The OSHA standards are the minimum of what you have to meet. And I have always tried as a safety person to go above and beyond for everybody in the field. What the tradeswomen do for a living is incredibly difficult. And you're dealing with weather, and you're dealing with all kinds of different stuff. So I always kind of felt like if I sit back and I learn what the issues are, I have a better opportunity to try and fix those issues. Same with the PPE. What I can tell you is that personal protective equipment across the board is not made for women. Traditionally, it's not made for women. So a safety person, you've got people like me out on the job site who are preaching this day in and day out. That PPE is made to protect you from falls, from burns, from head injuries. And if that equipment doesn't fit correctly, it's not going to protect you correctly. In conjunction with WINC and with Sue and with Lark and Nicole, we're starting to address some of these issues with the manufacturers, and to let the manufacturers know that this is something that we absolutely need to deal with, and it needs to be front and center. This was something that I thought was interesting, and I put this in here because because it's a woman's issue, and I've been hearing a lot about this from female tradeswomen. Being a mother, is this good or bad? And to even have to ask that question, but understand that again, this goes back to a perception of individuals on the job. I did put a CWIT study in there, and these were some of the responses that came back. I knew they'd tell me I couldn't work if they knew that I was pregnant. So I just wore big clothes and said nothing. Nobody knew and worked through my 8th month. Go down to the bottom one. When I asked for a job in a fabrication shop, instead of climbing ladders and working with a sledgehammer, the safety director told me that he had a problem with me working at all since I was pregnant. And it just goes to show that those prejudices are still out there. that, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, men can't have babies. So that's what I have always, that's what I have always said to people too. But these kinds of things, people are still dealing with this, and that prejudice, that perception, that affects everything else that women try to do on the job, and it can be incredibly frustrating. From a health and safety standpoint, what I can tell you from a practical standpoint, and Pam got into this a little bit, that training, the safety training for everybody on the job site is imperative to make sure that it's out there. And I take it very seriously because that's my job. It's my responsibility to make sure that people are trained correctly on hazard recognition and to encourage workers to report safety hazards. Some men don't even like to do it. Women definitely are less likely to report safety hazards. If you have a safety person, please utilize that person. That individual is supposed to be a voice, a help. It's my responsibility to ensure that women are treated equally because it is a safety issue. And in this business, I wear different hats every single day. Sometimes I got to be a mom. Sometimes I have to be a lawyer. Sometimes I have to be, a therapist, a disciplinarian, a manager, all these things. But what this comes down to is, was my final bullet point. I love this job. I love what I do. I love what I've learned in the field. I can tell you flat out, I have an undergraduate degree and a master's degree. My master's is actually in occupational safety and health. And I can tell you to this day that it's the tradeswomen and the tradesmen were the ones who honestly taught me how to do my job. So, my information is on the WOBA app. If you have any questions, any issues, anything at all that you're having issues with or feel like you need to solve, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. Nicole, thank you.
Thank you, Michele. This is very interesting, and I we appreciate this. And I just want to make a note too that you talked about chemicals, and you mentioned some specifically for construction. But I'm sure a lot of us that are here this evening realize that there are chemicals in all three of our target industries. So you have chemicals not only in construction, but you have chemicals in manufacturing. You have chemicals in transportation or transit work. Sir, some of the SEPTA tradeswomen can, speak to that. So I just wanted to point that out, that, some of our focus was on construction, but the same issues affect folks in all three of those industries. So I appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So our next speaker and our final panelist for the evening is Ms. Tierra Williams. Tierra is an organizer with the Laborers Local 79 out of New York. And Tierra is going to talk to us about her experience with sexual harassment as it relates to health and safety. So Tierra, the floor is yours.
Hi, ladies, and thank you so much for having me here. Your stories are amazing, and you guys are doing so much throughout the years. And I'm actually proud to be here amongst you guys because I haven't been in the trades as long as you guys. And in my short time, I think I've made a lot of, a major impact on many people, especially because many people reach out to me. So yes, I'm a organizer now, but I still consider myself a tradeswoman because at any given time, I love my job a lot that they just tell me go back in the field, I'm going. So I definitely, in the poll, I put myself as a tradeswoman. As a member of Laborers Local 79, for 3 years, I've done mason tending, general conditions, demolition, fireproofing, and scaffolding. Definitely male dominated, but I can't tell you no lie. Local 79 is a very, very diverse union, racially diverse. I'm not saying that men and women are 50-50, but we have a great amount of women that I have met and that I've worked with, and I've never been on a job alone. Even when I was non-union in my situation, before I tell you my situation, it was many women on the job, but we were non-union and treated really, really bad, unfairly. And I can't say like, I hated the experience that I had, but I can't see anybody that was built to go through it. Like, I feel like this was where I was supposed to be because I have, I'm actually a licensed practitioner's nurse because at a point I just gave up. And I said to myself, let me go in a field where the women belong type of thing. I was extremely discouraged and I didn't want to go back into the construction field, but I loved it. And I had many friends there that were union and non-union that just kept pushing me and having me go in the right direction, you know, what I really wanted to do. Although I can be an LPN, I think I can function in any job, but you always want to do something that you love. And no matter whether I was a tradeswoman or organizer, I always pushed other women to do what they love to do and to fight for what was right for them, to encourage them every day, whether I needed to be a shoulder to lean on, cry on, if you needed to call me late nights, you know, I've become that person now after I became the voice of the lawsuit that we were in. Anyway, a little of my story. I worked for a non-union company called Trade Off for 2 years. My son was 2 years old. I only took the job because I didn't have one. I really, really needed one at the time. They were paying us $15 at the time. They were getting paid about like $40 an hour for us. They were like pocketing the rest of the money. And that became an issue. So I voiced that at first. One of my friends, Mike, he, you know, schooled me on everything that, you know, they were doing and what I was entitled to and the benefits I should be getting and everything. They promised us healthcare and all of that stuff that we never received. I kept working because I'm just not the type of person to quit. Kept working. I got pregnant in 2017. 2017 was a really, really rough year for me. I wound up taking a month of work off because I got pregnant and they told me that they would put me on light duty and they never did. So after the month had passed, I was told by one of the foremen that if I don't come back, my job will be taken from underneath me. They didn't tell me anything about like FMLA leave. They didn't tell me what was, you know, what I was entitled to or anything. So I returned to work. 2 weeks later, I miscarried. And when I went to the doctor, I didn't even know I was miscarrying. I went to the doctor and the sac was just like empty. And she told me that this was like usually due to like stress related things, but you know, you can't really put that on paper because you just don't know what it is. A lot of miscarriages just happen like out of nowhere. And that time of me being pregnant and me miscarrying, I went to the bathroom a lot and it was this guy on the job, his name was Tony. He kept following me to the bathroom. He was standing outside the bathroom, staring at me in a menacing, you know, manner, making me real uncomfortable to the point where I had a friend of mine, which we're still friends to this day. I had her come with me to the bathroom to the point where every time we went on break, I made sure we went to the bathroom because there was only one bathroom for us. It wasn't that many women on the site. So we were entitled to a bathroom. They gave us one. It was really clean. I had no issue with that. They gave us products to clean and everything. They put in a little like safe corner for us so that people don't just disturb us. Really, it was kind of next to the men's bathroom, but a little like somewhat separated. It was a really comfortable spot though. He stood beyond that where there was like nothing there and he watched us go to the bathroom all the time. He tried to talk to me many times. I declined him. My boyfriend worked with me at the time. And when I declined him, he didn't like it. After a while, he told the foreman that I wasn't working and that I was using the bathroom a lot and I was staying there for hours or whatever. When I was really not staying there for hours, just maybe a few minutes, and I would just be cleaning myself up because, you know, whatever happens after miscarriage, you got to make sure you set for the day or whatever. So I worked in the 30s, 31, 32. The bathroom was on the first floor. So if I went to coffee, lunch, whatever, anytime I hit the first floor, I made sure I used the bathroom so I don't have to come back down. Because I declined him, he told me that I wasn't working. Then that's when I found out that the job, my superiors never told anyone on the site that I was pregnant, anything safety didn't know, like nobody, the GCs, no one on the job knew. So I decided to introduce myself to him and tell him what my situation was. I told him I don't know exactly where the disconnect was, but this is my situation and I would appreciate it. Like, this is not a time for you to be bothering me at this moment. Like, I am not emotionally ready for any of this. It went from that to him and my boyfriend getting into something. They almost fought. It got really, really nasty. I separated them, took my boyfriend wherever they wanted to go, wherever we needed to go. And when the foreman showed up, they basically did nothing about the situation. They removed him from the job, but the job that they sent him to was all the way across town. And the next day when I was going to the train station, he was at the train station. So I complained about it for months. I tried to file a report with the human resources. There was no real human resources, being that is a non-union job. There was no real office for them. It was a lot of stuff going on there. Shortly after, we had a meeting. This happened in about April. We had a meeting about it all the way in August. So I went through this whole entire thing from April to August, over and over and over again, with different people on the job. It was just a lot. And then I found out after that day that a lot of women was having issues. That day of the meeting, I got fired. It was a Tuesday. They fired me that Thursday around like 7 o'clock. When they fired me, I was like, fine, whatever, I'm gonna get unemployment. I'm over it. Like, I'm not doing this. I'm not fighting for this job. I'm over it. My friend Mike Batter came to me and was like, Tierra, what happened? Told him what happened. He told me to come into the office, local 79. They didn't make me any promises. They didn't offer me any job. They just sat there and told me exactly what my rights were, what I should do, and what I can do. They did not pressure me to do anything. They was like, listen, the ball is in your court. This could really work in your favor, whatever. They were a major backbone for me, picked me up when I was down. When I tell you, save my life, save my life. Now that I'm in the trades, it's completely different. I work with a lot of women. Women be pregnant on a job, they get put on light duty. We have, general conditions is usually something that's an easier type of work for us. We just kind of clean up the building or whatever the case is. After the other trades, they usually go on light duty. We do like heating support and stuff like that. They do stuff like that too, especially if you go through the apprenticeship, you get all these certs to be able to do all the areas that we function in, right? And like you guys said, a lot of women aren't protected as far as pregnancy. They don't feel safe on the job. They definitely made a lot of women feel safe on the job while they were pregnant. It is a complete difference. And I'm so happy to say that I'm with them and I see the change from what it used to be till now. I've only been in construction 5 years completely. I've been in the union 3. And I meet so many women that have these stories, and you could tell the difference from what it was then to what it is now. On a non-union job, every day I was reminded that I don't belong here, or someone told me that I belong in the kitchen. I had to tell them there's more chefs that's men than women. And I'm sure your wife can't cook. You know what I mean? Like, because you're eating pizza every day, she's not making you lunch. I don't belong in the kitchen. And either way, even if I did, I'm gonna do both. So he tried to discourage us every day. Like, he was always drunk on the job, tried to discourage us every day. When I got in the union, I never experienced that at all, like at all. I never had that issue. I never had someone try to belittle me for what situation I've been through before. They've pushed me so much that I became an organizer within 3 years. A lot of people don't make it that, to where I'm at in 3 years. A lot of people come in after 8, 9, 10 years. I displayed a lot of work ethic when it came to organizing in a lawsuit. So I brought up a lot of women and we sift through the women who we wanted to be in the lawsuit. I encouraged a lot of women. I became the voice because I noticed that a lot of people weren't strong in this. Once I made it past the miscarriage, it was just like, at this point, I can do it. Like, life and death situations here, I can do it now. So I became the voice of it. And now that I'm organized, I become a therapist. I might be an OBGYN next week. I don't know what, it's unlimited possibilities at this point. And I'm meeting so many women like you guys that had the same struggles. And I'm sure you can see the progress that we're making, whether it's little, or major progress. OSHA is definitely limited because health and safety does not only mean being injured by machinery on a job, protective PPE, PPE and stuff like that. It does not just mean that. It means you want to be mentally healthy on the job. You want to feel safe mentally. You want to physically feel safe. You don't want to be bombarded by a whole bunch of men. You don't want to frown when you come into the work site because it's every day. Like, I have to go to work and deal with a whole bunch of men. And then I got to come home and deal with my son and be a mother. My son is 7. I have to be a mother. He's super active. And as far as safety, not being followed home every day, not having somebody heckling at the back of your head every day trying to talk to you. You want to get on the job. You want to have a brother and a sisterhood. I remember being on the job, non-union. It was like a major competition. Now, let's make it clear. It's a competition for women, period. On most of these jobs, manufacturing, construction, transit, all of that. And yes, it is competitive for us because you don't want to be overlooked because we do the same work as them, but I feel more of a sisterhood where I am now. The other women, I didn't get that. I was friends with like 2 people out of like 11 on a job, and we were on the same job every day. We worked 7 days a week. to be in the position that I am now to help other women. I've helped a lot of women, not as far as they didn't get lawsuits or anything, just to be comfortable with their jobs and teach them what they're supposed to know about their rights on a job. And I made many friends through there. Like if I haven't gotten anything, a friendship is the best thing I could say I've gotten, is more so a family for me now. And I've never had this much support in my lifetime. And going back to which, not Pam, what's your name? Don't know. What
Michele.
name? Huh?
Michele.
Michele, I'm sorry,
Yes.
Michele. Going back to what Michele said, this is not designed for us, but we're definitely gonna make it ours. The boots don't fit us. The boots are not for us. Clothes are not for us. Pants aren't for us. Like, you can't see me now, but I got body, you know what I mean? These pants is not for me. I can't say I don't wanna display myself to people. If I got shape, I got shape. I can't help that. Hard hat's not for us. I can't put my hand up and put this hard hat on. My hands is little, the gloves don't fit us. But I'm here to fight with the women to make this for us because we belong here. I seen jobs fall apart because there's no women on it. There's no organization. You know, women can organize anything. We belong here. So with you ladies, I'm willing to do any and everything. I'm kind of small as far as I'm, working from the ground. I haven't made it to where you guys are, but it's amazing to be on this panel with y'all. And anything we do from here, just count me in with that.
Well, now watch what you say, because we will do it.
Listen, I told you, call me.
Absolutely. Tierra, thank you so much for sharing that story. I've seen some of the comments in the chat, and folks were talking about your resilience and, determination and how inspiring that is. I'm just, in awe when I've talked to tradeswomen, and then you share, some personal things about your story. But the great thing about that is that somewhere there's another woman going through the same thing that just has not said that. All too often we isolate ourselves because we feel like, and I can speak to this because, it might have been 60, 50, whatever, how many years ago when I did that work. But I understand, I can relate to that. So I do truly, truly appreciate you, as well as Michele and Pam, talking with us this afternoon. So for a few moments though, I do want to entertain some questions from the audience. And I know Maria will probably help me with that from the Hoover app. So please ask away. And while we wait for some of the questions, we've been talking about pregnancy, maternity leave, and childcare. Tune in tomorrow. We have a workshop with some awesome young ladies. There's another young lady in one of the workshops that has a story about pregnancy accommodations. So please definitely tune in, tomorrow for our other workshops. So are there any questions? Please place them in the chat or in the Q&A feature on the Hoover app. And then I think I did mention that the slides and this information is available within the Hoover app for the next couple of days. So please, folks, utilize these resources. It's not often that we have, these folks together, these speakers and these tradeswomen, all in one spot. So resources are going to be available on the Hoover app for 3 months, not 3 days. So I stand corrected. That's even better. Okay, lovely. So are there any questions for these ladies? What? You guys are really awesome. There are no questions. So we have a couple more minutes. So I'll give folks the opportunity to ask a question. I was writing some things down, but through the process of you guys presenting, you kind of answered those questions for me. So I'll have one question for you, Pam. as far as OSHA standards, do you, with the new administration, do you think there will be some changes in standards as it relates to women? Some stronger standards, especially in construction, because they seem to be behind the ball. And you're muted too, Pam.
Mood.
There you
You
go.
know, I think right now the big push seems to be on the COVID-19 standard, and there's a lot of focus on that. I've not heard anything yet about anything that would directly affect women, but of course, you know, there's a lot of women in healthcare, so that would certainly have an impact there.
Okay.
I
And
don't know
that's
if Michelle's heard of anything.
nothing. Okay. I hadn't either.
No.
And I thought I'd ask, you know, some
But yeah,
folks
I'll
that
keep
are.
that's a good question. I'll kind of keep my radar out for that.
Yeah, and we have a question from Lauren Sugarman with Chicago Women in Trade. She said, can we organize together to push for changes in OSHA standards? Absolutely, Lauren, that's what I do. We could talk offline about that. So are there any other questions? Comments? So a lot of kudos to the panel from folks. I don't know if you ladies are looking at the chat, but folks are, all right. So there are no other questions, but lots of thank yous. I do hope that you ladies are able to join us over the course of the next couple of days, because we got an awesome lineup. But I want to bring on my other colleague, Jenny Barrett, who is with SEPTA, to provide wrap up, takeaways, and talk about the next couple of days. Jenny?
All right, thanks, Nicole. Wow, what a wonderful day so far. This is just amazing. And thank you to everyone who shared their stories and their wisdom. The passion that is here is quite amazing. You know, the personal stories, Tierra, thank you so much. And to Michele and Pam and to Joan and the Department of Labor for making this all possible. I want to note that Lauren Sugarman did place in the chat a link to the, now I can't see it, Odie. If you want to go to the chat, you'll be able to see a link for, let me pull it up, for Odie Hicks. And there's a shop to buy swag that supports Odie's son. So please make sure you check that out. Nicole, I want to thank Nicole for doing an awesome job today. This is just really amazing. There's a lot that happens behind the scene, and Sue and her staff. So as a reminder also, Nicole opened today by talking about the call for action. So if we can have the call for action link again placed in the chat, please make sure that you check that out. Tomorrow our program again begins at 4 p.m. And we have, in addition to our regular programming, we're going to have a really, really fun networking after a 6:30 to 7 break. So that'll be 1 hour following at 7 o'clock. So if you could in the chat, just share with us your takeaway from today. And again, we hope to see everyone tomorrow. And if you would, stay safe and have a nice evening. And terrific to have everybody involved. We also want to send a shout out to Leslie Richards. I know she's very busy running a transit agency, and so to have her here today was just marvelous. Anyway, thank you. I'll be presenting tomorrow with the tradeswomen of SEPTA, and we thank everyone. Okay. Oh.